Today we review the Ezio Hidden Blade from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. So if you go ahead and buy this product, you're going to get one Vambrace and one Hidden Blade. The Vambrace is made out of a flexible plastic. It has an accurately detailed 3D molding on it, and the back has a plastic but functional belt buckle. The blade portion of this replica has a flexible plastic backing as well, which secures to the arm by two brown Velcro straps. The blade and the housing are made of a more rigid plastic. At the push of this button, the blade comes shooting out. However, it has to be pushed back into place by hand, where it can then be locked down by the safety button in the back, just in case you don't want the blade shooting out by accident. So, from a filmmaker's perspective, what are my favorite things about this replica? Well, first, it's the official replica, therefore it is very accurate in terms of design, having been developed directly from the in-game 3D model. Second, I like the weight of the prop. Since it's made out of plastic, it keeps the weight down, as opposed to a metal hidden blade. This can be less of a distraction to the actor, allowing them to focus on their performance rather than on a bulky prop. Third, I like the price. For $30 to $50, you get a Vambrace and you get a hidden blade. Now, if you've seen some of my previous videos, you know that some hidden blades can go for over $100, and that's before you start building them and assembling them. So this Vambrace and hidden blade is a pretty good bang for your buck. Another thing I like is the paint. Originally, I was worried that this was not going to be reflective enough, but after a few tests, I have found that this metallic sheen comes across really well on film. It wasn't as distressed as I'd like, but that's an easy fix. Now, I do have some issues with this hidden blade, one of them being the scale. If you've played Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, you know that Ezio's hidden blades are a lot longer than this, but that's just a downside you run into when you have a one-size-fits-all product. Another downside is that it's made out of plastic. I know I mentioned this as a positive before, however, from a durability standpoint, it does seem like this plastic could break if given enough stress. And if you make an Assassin's Creed movie, odds are you're doing fighting and parkour scenes, and you could potentially break this product. Additionally, I don't like that it's spring assisted. As you know, I prefer gravity hidden blades on set, and that's just because they're far more predictable. Even though this looks really cool when it's shot up, and it retains its shape when it's shot up, it just poses a particular safety issue on set, and that's something I like to avoid. Not to say that it would stop me from using this prop on any of my movies, I would just be far more cautious with it than I would be, say, with a gravity hidden blade. Now, what are some of the modifications that you can do with this prop? Well, I like cosmetic modifications, so I distressed my first blade a little more by covering it in black paint and wiping off the excess paint when it was still wet. I also added hints of copper color with a Sharpie marker. Now the other two mods I got directly from Amon-Ra. If you haven't watched any of his videos concerning hidden blades, I'd highly recommend it, and I'll put a link in the description below. They're a great resource for inspiration and tips in general. I did the modification where you could hook up the activation button to fishing wire and snake it under the Vambrace. This allows you to control the release mechanism by a ring on the blade hand, just like in game. It's a cool touch, and the tutorial can be found here. The second blade I covered in tinfoil tape. As mentioned before, I originally thought I would like a more metallic look to my blade. However, this did not turn out as intended. There seems to be too much detail for the foil to do it justice, and it turned out too shiny. I tried to doll it up by distressing it a little more, but that didn't work out well either. It may look cool for long shots, but will not hold up for any close-ups. As you can tell, I really like this prop. I think it's a lot better than the Edward Kenway Hidden Blade made by McFarlane Toys. Now, it does have some downsides when it comes to filming. However, I still think it's a really solid prop, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who's interested. And that does it for the Ezio Hidden Blade from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. The next video we'll be tackling is the Arno Phantom Blade from Assassin's Creed Unity. See you soon.